On today's episode of Basic Buttercream Flowers, I'm going to be making 3 types of buttercream flowers. One, sunflower, the second one, peony flower, and the third, hibiscus flower. Hi viewers, my name is Susan and I am the host of Sussy's Cakes Recipes. Welcome to my recipe channel. Unlike the basic buttercream flowers I made last week, I'll leave the link in the description box beneath this video. I'm using a semi-thick buttercream consistency here because I want the flowers to crust on time so that I could place them on the cake I was going to use the next day. So let's get started. I'm making use of this parchment paper, sort of. This is a DIY parchment paper. They're actually calendars, and I just cut them into square. Some buttercream colored in different food coloring. For my sunflower, I couldn't find the golden yellow, so I used egg yellow. Although I didn't really like the turnout, but I had no option. Then a styrofoam and a flower nail, and then of course nozzle tips and a baking tray where I was going to keep the flowers to crust before using. So to my buttercream, I'm using a semi-thick consistency, not a medium consistency, because I wanted it to crust on time. For my sunflower, I'm making use of tip 352 and tip 3. Now, I first of all pipe something like a cone with my buttercream, and then I'm going to be using this tip 352 to create something like a leaf. This is also the tip we use in creating leaf. I just pipe and pull out each petals, and then once I was through, I went to create a second layer by piping different petals in between the first layer, and that was just how I did this. Now you want the tip, the part that look like a V, is to form a V, that shape of a V. Let that be what will be doing the piping. That's how you're going to hold your tip when piping. Now for the center, I made use of a chocolate colored buttercream with a tip number 3 to pipe dots in the center, and I used an egg yellow colored buttercream for the sunflower. For the open peony, I used a tip 123. This is also the tip we use in creating buttercream rose. So I placed my parchment paper on my flower nail and piped something like a cone, and then I started using the nozzle tip 3, the small round tip. You can use nozzle tip 2 to pipe in something like a dot. Now this is not completely a dot, this looks like a spike. So I just held my piping bag in a straight position, and I'm piping out dot and pulling it out while still piping to create spikes. Then once I was sure, I went in with my tip 123, and then I'm making petals. Now you want to make sure the fatter part is facing down. Fatter part of your nozzle tip is facing down, and the thinner part is facing you. And you're creating something like a C, a backward C, a C that is facing down. That is how you create these petals. C that is facing down. So the way you are going to write the C or pipe the C is like you're pulling from the down parts of your flowers to the top, and then you're pulling down again, a backward C. That's a movement. So you keep creating petals till you're satisfied. So this is how it looks. For the final flowers, which is the hibiscus flower, I'm still making use of my tip 123. You can use a larger rose nozzle tip, but I'm using tip 123, and I'm just going to pipe it in this direction, where I first of all create something like a ring on my parchment paper. I'll create a ring on a parchment paper with that same tip, and then I'll go over to create the petals. I don't have the right to words to describe how these petals are created, but just look at the video and I really hope you understand. Now always make sure that the larger part of your nozzle tip for this particular hibiscus flower is facing the parchment paper and the thinner part is facing you, and then you're going to pipe petals from the center. The reason why the ring is created is to give the petals a lift. So I went to create 2 sets of the rings on each other to give it a lift. And so this is just how I created this hibiscus flower. Then once I was through with creating the petals, I went in to create the pod using a nozzle tip 3. I created a long rope kind of, and then I went in to pipe in little dots just at the tip of that long rope, and that was how simple it was to create it. Now if you're new to my recipe channel, please subscribe and stay tuned to all my videos that I share every week, and please remember to leave me a comment and also check the description box beneath this video for more tips on cake decorating and all other recipes. When creating the hibiscus flower, you want to pipe from the center upward and back to the center, and when you're making your petals, you want to wiggle your hands while you do the piping. And this was how I created the petals, the large petals. And then for the center, I used another colored buttercream to create something like a rope using a nozzle tip 3, and then I went over with a nozzle tip 2 to create dots just at the tips of the long rope, and that was it. Now once I was through with all my petals, I left them to crust on my work surface for 3 hours. Now if you're living in Nigeria, a country like Nigeria, you do not want to put these flowers in the fridge or in the freezer section, because yes, it's going to crust on time, but after placing it on the cake, or during transportation, if your customer is not going to make use of that cake immediately, or also put it in the freezer or fridge section, they will start melting and to disfigure your cake. So once the flowers are crusted just like this, it was easy for me to peel off from the parchment paper and place it on my cake. If you want to see the making and the setup of the cake I use this particular flowers for, then watch my next shots on YouTube on Tuesday. So that's all for me for today. Thank you so much for watching. See you in my next video. Bye bye.